Welcome to the Fearless Happiness Podcast, where we showcase phenomenal individuals who have overcome serious traumas, life obstacles, and challenges to find their own path to fearless happiness. Listen as Max Naist invites guests from all around the world to share their experiences and spread strength, hope, and faith. This is the Fearless Happiness Podcast, and this is Max Naist.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this world. This is Max from the Fearless Happiness Podcast coming to you again with another special and amazing guest. And I really say that because he's a fellow squid like I am, fellow Navy veteran. But he's 11 books. He's just a fellow podcaster. But I'm going to let him talk about what he does and who he is. And so what I like to do, Robert, is have you introduce yourself to my audience, like who you are, what it is you do, and then you and I are going to rock and roll.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Max. Appreciate it for having me on your podcast. A little bit about me. I grew up in upstate New York, a little village of 300 people, quintessential New England, wonderful place to grow up. The center of the village was the church. I grew up, went to high school, graduated high school, started farming, went to community college, and at that time, my goal was to serve publicly. I wanted to be work in law enforcement, earned a degree in criminal justice, but then I decided to go into farming. I raised beef cattle, and I really enjoyed that. I did very well. And then I realized that life had something in store for me. I wasn't quite sure. So I returned to school, and I graduated from the State University of New York at Albany. And then I knew something. I really wanted to serve publicly, and I needed worldly maturity because I grew up in that little small village in upstate New York. So I actually enlisted in the Navy when I was 34 years old. My goal was to serve 4 years and then return to back home and go to law school at the University of Albany at the law school there, and then serve publicly. So I finished my first 4-year enlistment. I really enjoyed serving the Navy. In fact, the first tour of duty was in Japan, so I got to see the world as I hoped. I re-enlisted for another 6 years. That would have been 10 years total. I already made chief, but the morning of 9/11 changed everything, and I knew right then and there I would stay in the Navy until the Navy no longer wanted my service, and I would serve another 18 years. The morning of 9/11, I would never have imagined where the Navy would take me and send me, with the finest patriots, the most hardened warriors, skilled technical technicians. I served with not only Naval Special Warfare, Army Operations Group. I served 5 tours of duty in Afghanistan, multiple deployments around the globe. But those 5 tours of duty in Afghanistan really shaped me and would take me on to where I am today. But so fast forward to a tremendous career. And I served, like I said, with the finest people, and a tremendous career. But as I was getting ready to retire, I served at the Pentagon. I was not only I was a Master Chief Petty Officer, and then I commissioned as a warrant officer, which is very, very unusual, because I wanted to stay tactical and I wanted to serve at a time of war downrange, and I did that. And but as I was getting ready to retire, I was sent over, of all places, for a behavioral health, mental health screening. And I was speaking with an Army psychiatrist at an Army base there in Washington, D.C. And of all things, he mentioned God. Now, the reason I say that is because that conversation took me in a completely different path, because if you had asked me what I would do with my life before I walked into that office, I would have said, well, I'm going to retire and I'm going to go right back to either Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, wherever the war would take me. and I would serve as a contractor and the rest, and that would have been that. But because of that conversation I had with that Army psychiatrist, I decided when I left that office and I was going back to the Pentagon, I would enter into seminary. And so, yeah, that's what I did. And so that meeting took place late summer of 2019. In October, I found myself in seminary. So since then, in the past 6 years, I completed seminary. I'm a pastor. I'm a podcaster. I've written 11 books, and I serve people all over the world, to include taking care of the poor, widows, orphans, those at risk in Afghanistan. So I gained a great affinity with the Afghan people as I served there in a combat zone, because what I realized, and again, everything is tied in to my relationship with the Lord. But even as an armed combatant, I realized that there was no greater environment to serve humanity than there. And so I gained a great affinity with the Afghan people, and I continue to do that to this day. I'm in contact with those in Afghanistan every day. And so after I retired, I worked as a contractor for a couple of years here locally. And then I worked at Operation Blessing, which is part of Christian Broadcasting Network, as an operations officer in their international disaster relief sector. But I fully retired in March of 2023. And since then, I've dedicated my life to ministry, that's what I've been doing, and writing and helping those who are poor and at risk. So.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that with us. And it's funny when you say that, right? It's because it brings me back to a time in my early recovery when my mentors and stuff said, when you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans, right? So like in your case, you had your plans and then you had that conversation and God said, this is where it's going to change, Robert. Right. So, and obviously, I mean, okay, so this is where you and I are different, right? You got to have that adventure, right? I joined the Navy. I went to boot camp in San Diego, went to A school in San Francisco, and, hoping, right? I don't know if you remember, but they would give us these dream sheets and said, we can't promise, but we want to see where you'd like to go. And I was like, sure. So I put, knowing what I was going through before I left, California, my house or went to boot camp, I'm like, I got to get out of here, or I'm going to fall back into some same behaviors that's going to get me in trouble. So I put like Spain, Portugal, all these foreign ports, right? I get my orders the day we graduate, and I'm going back home to my Orange County, getting stationed 20 minutes from my house in Long Beach. And I don't know, you probably remember the commercials where it was like the Navy. It's not just a job, and it's an adventure, right? And you would see the fleet on those commercials. My mom goes, what happened to your adventure? I said, I guess it's going to stay in California, right? And there's some things that I think about when I hear you speak. I'm like, man, it would have been great if I would have continued and, retired Navy too, because then I probably would have had those adventures, right? Because I got out like less than a year before we went to the Gulf, the first Gulf War, Desert Storm. And I got to serve with, well, at least when we did our Colonel Usher drills, right? I got to see some of those special warfare guys. We had SEAL Team 5 on board. I was on an LHA at the time. And, we got to see Marine Recon, the SEAL Team 5. And, I'd sit on the deck and watch them do their stuff and just go like, well, this is the adventure they were talking about, for me. But I didn't take advantage. I ended up getting hurt. But again, I love to say thank you for your service, right? Because I think, and then I think it shaped you all that time you did in the service. God was getting you ready for your ministry. But I'm here to tell everybody, right? I talk about the 12 steps. Sometimes I talk about God, the Lord, who I have faith in, but I just want to give people the opportunity to see what's happened in your life, right? And how that you've written 11 books, but talk about some of those, say the challenges, because you were there, right, during wartime, and you've seen battle. How did that affect you when it came to your faith, or just shaping you as a person, right? Like, because I know I've seen things in my addiction where I was like, well, if there's a God, why is he letting me go through this kind of thing, right? But you get what I'm saying, and you've seen the poor, you've seen what battle, what war has done to a country. How did that shape you early on, where you were like, man, I don't know, like if I want to do this or not? I mean, you said you wanted to keep going, but it had to have that effect on you mentally when you were seeing, especially children, right, going through ravages of war. How did that shape you, and how did that affect you?
Well, that question is often asked me, how could you do what you did if you're a man of faith? And so, you really have to rationalize these things, or either you do it or you don't, right? And so I was filled with the desire to serve selflessly and purposefully, right? I wanted to serve my country. Both my parents were World War II veterans. And I really wanted to do this. And of course, with 9/11 occurred, obviously I was in it for the long haul. So I knew that we were at war, and I didn't know where that would take me. But once I realized that my path was going to take me to Afghanistan, then I realized that, wow, this is real. And once you land there, and you start working with these guys, then you realize that, this is not what you think it is, right? Because nothing prepares you unless you're a special warfare operator. Nothing can prepare you for that, right? Unless you're, and so, but what I had to rationalize is this, and the opposing force is the enemy because they want to be, and that's it.
Right.
Once they're no longer a combatant, they're no longer the enemy, on the battlefield. They give up, they surrender. And one of the things I would tell people is, when a combatant is no longer a combatant and is wounded, they receive the same care that we offer our own personnel, right? So there's a big difference between the way we care for people and the way the enemy cares for people. We know that for a fact. That's what separates us.
Right.
And so, but my service, having been with these really staunch, stoic men, and women for that matter, even though I received the highest levels of training, I can freely tell you without, without really bluster or, but I freely admit this, that, I don't think I was emotionally prepared for what I would witness and what I would observe and what I would, experience. And that's just the way it is. And so from that, I did experience trauma. I did experience, some really some deep-seated moral injury, some PT, and I certainly chronic PTSD as a result, just because I'm not as strong as the people I served with. And I mean, that I can freely admit to that.
Right.
But I'm still grateful for the opportunity to have been to have served there, and for that, I'm very grateful. And so, but it did come at a cost. I did experience trauma, and like I mentioned, I had gone for mental health screenings because I did experience, chronic PTSD, anger, depression, survivor's guilt, all these things that come with that type of experience, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, you can't help it, right? But
No.
you're going through that. And I mean, I'm going to follow that up with, I know some people that have served at the highest levels, right, with special warfare. And I mean, even them, they talk about the PTSD, and like, it's something you can't escape from, the things you see and that you have to do in those situations, right? And, but it, I don't, I mean, I have my own form of PTSD, and that's survivor's guilt in another arena, right? Not from my addiction. So I kind of get it from seeing some of the things I've seen when I was actively in my addiction on the street and stuff like that, what I've seen with people and stuff. So I kind of get it, but war's different, right?
Yeah.
And, because I think about 9/11 when that happened. I mean, I was already out of the service, and I mean, that's no other story, but I think about what that did for our military, right? Like everybody was like, okay, we're staying in because we're going to protect our country now that this has happened, right? Wasn't that the first time in hundreds of years where an enemy has hit American soil, right? So it kind of set the Patriots off like, oh, that's never going to happen again, right? So,
Yeah.
But going back to that, so as you were serving, and we know what happened in Afghanistan with the pullout and stuff like that, right?
Right.
I mean, I don't trust the news, right? They don't talk about it much. But from what I hear from people that I know in the military, it was as bad as some of them said it was once we left. That when the Taliban came in, it was free for all for them to do whatever they want to. And that's why I think that's probably a big reason you want to go back and help the children and people that are suffering from that time, because of what those specific regime, that what they do to their people. But I want to ask you, right? Because I'm sure you saw it, because I don't care how tough you are. When you see something happen to a child, right? Whether it's wartime or here in the States due to domestic violence or whatever, that has an effect on even the toughest person. How have you managed to, I mean, I know you say you still suffer from the trauma and chronic PTSD, but did you get help for it, or how do you handle it? I know God is probably a big factor in your life to help you with that, but how else? So if the audience is listening and they're like, I got to figure this out, like, how did you find the help that you needed to continue doing the work that you do now?
Yeah. Great question. Well, first off, you hit on a very good point. The disastrous withdrawal in 2021, August of 2021, it really, in my mind, was a surrender, because we turned everything over to the enemy, right?
Right.
But what we really did was we really turned our backs on our Afghan allies who fought with us for 20 years. And we left them in the lurch, right? And that the Taliban would hunt them down and kill them. Now, and they were really our aligned and highly skilled and highly trained Afghan special forces. The Taliban does not really care about a regular conscript, right? A private or sergeant that was just in the Afghan army.
Right.
The real threat is the highly skilled Afghan special forces, the commandos and the rest, right? So, and really what happened was just inexcusable. I mean, so that was a catastrophic mistake. So that really led to, for many of us that were Afghan war veterans, this moral injury, this betrayal, if you will. So that's deep seated. So to answer your question, I have to rely upon both secular and non-secular treatment programs, right?
Right.
So the VA offers, they take very good care of me. I will have to say that. And I follow through with a 12-step program, Celebrate Recovery, which I think is phenomenal, right?
Right.
In fact, I'm involved in that ministry myself. I mentor and support men who are afflicted and addicted through the ministry of Celebrate Recovery. And so also through the VA, through their counseling services, I get my prescription medications through there. And I think a lot of my reliance on my faith, which only gets stronger every day because I am a pastor, and I get to work so in depth with with my relationship, and which I said gets stronger every day. Now, because I tell people, although I've completed seminary, I don't consider myself a theologian. I consider myself a disciple. That's all. I'm just an ordinary guy who is trying to strengthen my relationship with the Lord. And through that, I try to just reach out to help other people. That's it. So if you were to ask me what verse, chapter is this, that, and the other thing, I really can't tell you. But I do know what the Lord has done for me, and I want to forward that along. And I know that there is the good news of the gospel, and that's what I try to relay to others, because there's healing power in that. I know that for a fact. And so, but I will tell you that that the government, which is really almost non-existent there, and the effects on the ordinary Afghan people are just devastating. And so I try to do my best to help as those that I can, to make their lives somewhat better than what
Right.
other than if I couldn't, their lives would be miserable, right?
Right.
And so I just try to help where and when I can, and try to ease what suffering to whomever I can in some very, very small way. I started my own nonprofit, which is called Bright Future Philanthropy Corporation. So I have that, and it's a Virginia-based 5013C. If you can see behind me some of my books. They're all available on Amazon, but also if someone wants an author signed copy, they can order them right through me through email, and I don't sell them. They're for donation only. And 100% of those donations go to feed people. So I don't want to take away from anybody, so I cover all the administrative costs myself. So if someone wants to make a donation, I'll send them the book. They provide for postage. And I tell people, just give them away, right? Because the worst thing that somebody can do, I believe, is buy a book and then put it on a bookshelf. It doesn't do anybody any good, right? So
Right.
just give them away. Just give them away. Maybe it'll influence somebody to offer a donation the second, third, fourth time around. It doesn't matter book sales to me. I would rather have them given away, and perhaps someone give a donation. So because all the money I help young women with a seamstress academy, so they can learn how to sew, so that they can earn a little money selling dresses, things like that,
Right.
widows, orphans, feeding them, things like, little things, but makes a big difference when you're hungry,
Yeah.
right? Or you're
Absolutely.
sick,
Yeah.
right? So yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Well, I'm going to say it, but God bless you for doing that,
Thank
right?
you.
Because I mean, when I'm hearing you talk, like I can even feel myself getting choked up thinking about like that betrayal that they must have felt when we just left, right?
We just left, right?
And not understanding. See, and we'll talk after, because I have some friends that, they're on the other side. They're going, oh, we didn't do that. He did it the correct way. And we know who we're talking about. And I'm like, no, we didn't.
Mm.
No, we didn't. You ask people that I know in the military that were there at that time and go, no, we didn't. But like, God bless you that you still show up for them, so that
Mhm.
there is a face from us, right? That says we still care and we're going to do our part to help you guys, because we didn't want to leave you. That wasn't our choice, right? Because like you said, like the Taliban went after them like full force, like to
Mhm.
destroy and get rid of anything in their way, whether it's women, children, the men, right? Because that's what they do, and it's sad, but at least it comforts me knowing that you're still helping, trying to help them in some form or fashion, right? So I always say, like, when I hear that, God's got a place for you when you get up there, when it's your time. I think he's gonna, but because war, as you and I know, I mean, I can't say that I'm a wartime vet, but I've got friends who've come back, and talking to you, I can still hear the pain in their voice, right? Because we did sign up because we wanted to serve in a capacity to give back to our communities, the country we live in, right? To kind of say, like, thank you for giving us the life you've given us. So now we're going to
Mhm.
give back, right? Because that's why I love this saying from JFK is not don't ask what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. I mean, whatever politics you believe in, I think that's a quote that just stands out for the ages, right?
Yes. Mhm.
And now you're serving God and you're right, because I mean, I can sit here we could probably be here for hours and I could ask you this and how'd you start this and how do I get involved? But let's talk about some of the books you have written and what are in those books. So, right, when we get to that point, we can say, okay, this is how you can get a hold of Robert. Let him know which book you want and he'll get it to you. But talk about your books. 11's a lot of books. So I want to hear about them, Robert.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Well, the first book I wrote is titled "A Faith, Flag, and Family: A Purposeful Guide for Selfless Service," and that was born out of when I was a senior enlisted leader. I started writing letters to sailors, and I think the first letter was addressed to 5 sailors, and I just delivered. I just here. I want you to read this, right? And
Right.
so they were memo format. Why? And I think, I know the first letter was why I serve. Try to inspire these 5 sailors, in this memo format, why I serve, to inspire them to serve, right? And so the next month, I wrote another one, and then it went maybe to 10 sailors. Then it went to 20. Then it went to 50, and then over the course of a few years, it was, I don't even know how many people were getting them. It just ballooned to, hundreds and hundreds of people. And then people would forward them to their brother, uncles, cousins, and people would send me emails. Oh, my relative sent me this, and thank you so much. And so that was the first book. I put together a series of, I put an anthology, if you will, of all these memos into this first book, Faith, Flag, and Family: A Purposeful Guide for Selfless Service. And then I thought, well, it's got to be a second book, right? So I've written historical accounts of my parents' war service during World War II. I've written philosophical book, my view of what others perceive. That's kind of an overview of how I look at life, the struggles of my youth, growing up, growing older. Then I wrote some anthologies of short stories. It's entitled "The Warmth of the Gospel," and so there's a couple of those. You can see them right behind me.
I see them behind.
And then I've written a series of biblically based teen novellas, and inspired in collaboration with my granddaughter. And so they're really neat. Now, my granddaughter came up with this idea they're very small in size. These books, so there's my hand. So they're designed to fit in a girl's purse.
Oh, wow.
So they're like a pocket book, right? And
Right.
so we've written 3 in that series, and she's the main character, and I'm the protagonist. I save her from evil, right? And so they're really neat. They're nice little stories, and so we've written 3 of those. We've written 4 children's books, and so we have those. And then, so that's the 11. But I also have put together 9 volumes. So this is in advance of the 11. So 9 volumes of coloring pages for those living with PTSD. So that's really unique because each volume has 31 intricate designs and 31 journaling pages. So the idea is focused attentiveness. So you color in with coloring pencils the design. You can spend hours on these designs coloring them in, but then you have a journaling page for the corresponding day. And
Oh, no.
so Yeah. So I put together 9 volumes of those. So all in total, there's over 20 books that I've put together over the last 6 years. So all of which are available on Amazon or through me, whichever. But so that's a little bit about the books. And so I'm currently writing a book right now. I'm co-authoring it with, it's a really unique book. And I'm really excited about it because the book it's written in collaboration with a woman who lives outside of the United States, and it's going to be uh, her views and my views on faith. And she is not a Christian. And so it's just kind of resolutions of faith, and just kind of, come together and look at life through her eyes and my eyes. And it's not in a way to convert anyone. It's just to kind of look at life and from two perspectives. And so I'm really excited about that one. It'll be under my name, obviously, but her name, it will be only as a pseudonym because of we have to protect her identity. So
Gotcha. I love that though, right? Because you're going to show the world that you can look and have faith from two different perspectives, still get along and help other people,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Which, as you see in the world today, it just seems if you have a different view or you're, I won't get into it, but you get what I'm getting at, right? Like we've seen
Yes.
recent events where if you have a certain view, you're wrong, anyway. And I love that, right? Because I think this world has gotten away from that oneness that God wants us to be, right? Like one with each other, connected. Which, like your 12-step program, which I've been to a few Celebrate Recovery meetings here locally, and I loved it. But I got sober through 12 steps of AA, right?
AA, sure.
And, that's my foundation, but it's the foundation that has been laid out for me that has always pushed me to get to know God even more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and if I didn't have that connection with people from different backgrounds, I mean, I'll be sitting here with you, but to go in a room and go, wow, that person comes from a totally different background, but we're hitting there together and we're helping each other is, to me, like that's the best thing ever that I have learned from my recovery is that it doesn't matter where you come from. We have one purpose, and that purpose is to help one each other. In our case, get sober and stay sober, right? And then things evolve from there. So as you've gone in this journey and written your books, I mean, it sounds like you're a very busy man, right? But it also sounds like it's a work of passion. Like this is what you love to do. And it doesn't matter who you are. If you need help, you're going to be the guy that puts his hand out and says, right? Because, and there's a saying or on our literature in AA that always gets me emotional, but it was one of those things I read that clicked for me when it said, when anyone, anywhere cries out for help, let the hand of AA be there. And for that, I'm responsible. Why? My sponsor said, take out the AA part, right? For now, because after my last relapse, and he said, that anywhere, when anyone anywhere cries out for help, you're going to be that guy that's going to help someone. I don't care. It doesn't have to be in a meeting, whoever. And thank God I listened to him, right? 22 years later, I'm still sober because of that advice. And
amen.
Because being around guys like you that I have met along the way, right? That I choose to surround myself with and learn from you, because like sometimes I feel like I'm still, I mean, it's always good to feel like you're learning, right? And keep learning. But when I meet guys like you, I'm like in awe, because I'm like, okay, there's so much more for me to learn. How can I help do this? Because I see Robert doing it. How can I expand my help for other people? And I guess this is a good outlet for me to have you on here to share your story so people could see like, wow, Robert has come, right? He served our country for 27 years and now he's serving others. It's amazing.
Thank you. Well, also one
Go
of the
ahead.
things I'm a doctoral student as well. And so, uh, uh, people will say, well, by the time you finish, with that degree, you'll be, because I'm 66, right? So you'll be 70 years old. So, but to what end? Well, and so there's always those naysayers, they try,
Yeah.
what, so, uh, but the reason I'm really focused on doing it, I have a 14-year-old granddaughter. And
Right.
so I'm trying to motivate her. And so what better way to celebrate her graduation from high school is both of us will be in cap and gown, right?
That's that to me, that is so awesome, right? But I'm with you, Grandpa. I'm the same. I got
Yeah, yeah,
grandchildren, and I have said I want to go back and get my master's, right? And
right.
so same thing. People go, "Well, you're going to be 60," and I'm like,
Yeah,
"So, like,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, right." God never says you stop learning. Where in the Bible does it? God says
yeah,
stop learning at this age, right? But
yeah.
it always seems to me like we're supposed to be lifelong learners, right? Especially in
Hmm.
our faith and how to grow that faith and help others in the process, right? It's a lifelong process,
Hmm.
correct?
That's right. Yeah. And
Ryan?
that's all I want to do. I just want to grow closer to the Lord you know, uh, and just be able to be a better person, a man for all seasons, right? For those that I serve and love, and those who are poor, those that are risk, and also just to be that motivational factor for my granddaughter, as she grows up and begins life, after high school, and she can always look back and because I'm very, very close with her, and I just want to be that motivational factor for her and, that force for good and all those things that we're supposed to be for our grandkids, right?
That's
So
right. Yeah, I
yeah,
hear you. Because that's like, I have 12 grandkids now.
no kidding.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Exactly. That's what I say. So I look in the mirror and go, really? Yeah. But like I see that in my grandson, and not because I'm leading the way, but I mean, he does sports, right? But he stays after school for the extracurricular classes.
Hmm.
He just loves learning, whatever it is. And then he goes
Hmm.
off to practice, right? You never see him until 8 o'clock at night. I'm like, man, I wish I was like him back when I was his age.
Yeah.
But but if I can, like you say, help lead in that way, right? For him and my other grandkids, we're like, hey, grandpa's always learning, right? And pretty soon we're gonna get to call you Dr.
Yeah.
Jordan, right? I love it. Right. But I think you're right. That you can't get better than that example. Like your granddaughter's gonna look up and go, wow, look at grandpa, right? We get to put on our cap and gowns, and
Yeah.
he's graduating and I'm graduating, and it's amazing. And like I said, like thank you for being here and sharing this story of your life with us, and where you've been and how you've taken those challenges and turn them into triumphs, right? Because I liken it to my recovery, and you understand this, right? Like not thinking, how am I going to help someone? And my sponsor said, just keep doing what you're doing. You'll realize it when you do. You'll
Mm.
thank me later. Because when he would help me right through the steps, he'd like, Max, you're helping me more than I'm helping you. And I would look at him and I would go like, you're crazy. No way. You're saving my life. How am I helping you more? And then when I did it, I went back to his office and I said, I get what you meant. I said,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? There's nothing like it. And like, right. That's one thing I would like to start down the line. And maybe you and I can have a conversation another time, is because I live 5 minutes from the back of Camp Pendleton.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
And
Yeah.
I want to start like my friend did. And I'm drawing a blank. I told you my CRS is getting worse, but before he passed away, he started a nonprofit for veterans to help them, whether they have addiction or they need, for homelessness or whatever. And, God took him at a young age, but let me put it this way, he was on fire for the Lord, and it was his driving motivation, right? Because he got injured both in the service and out of the service. And I think it was a brain thing that happened. He fell, bumped his head, and that was it. And I miss him every day, but he was constantly trying to help his fellow veterans with whatever resources he could. And
Hmm.
and that's another story I could tell you about, because it actually got crazy, because he opened a little store, and next door some really weird things were happening. Yeah, we'll talk about that later. But I want to be like you guys, right? Where, because I know, and I hate to say this, right? When I got out of the military, it's almost like getting out of prison, where they said, here's your gate money. Good luck, right? And I'm thinking, I joined the Navy. It's going to be easy to get a job. They didn't prepare me for civilian life, and right. And I want to do that for guys getting out and ladies, right? Not only maybe they're struggling with addiction, help them with that too, maybe housing. But anyway, that's another podcast. But you know, I think when we join the service, it sets us up for that lifelong service, right? Like, can't help but want to help other people, no matter what that looks like. And gratefully, you're here sharing that part of yourself. So I'm going to ask you some of the questions that I can remember that we jokingly talked about before the podcast, right? As you can see, fearless. We're going to start with fearless. So, Robert, what does fearless mean to you, and how does that show up in your life on a daily basis?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. Fearless. I don't think of myself as, being, I think we see ourselves as this fearless, like a lion or something. I'm just a humble servant who's willing to go forth and maybe extraordinary measures to help others. Now, where that takes me, I've been places that have been where I've been very, very scared, where the circumstances have been very challenging, where they've been very austere. But I'm first to tell you, I have not been fearless, but I've relied on the Lord to get me through. So I would rather say I'm a humble servant, because if I said I was not fearless, I wouldn't be telling the truth. So
I love it. See, very humble, everybody. I love it. I love it. That leads me into the next question, right? As you see, I put a Y in happiness. Knowing I put that Y in happiness, what does happiness mean to you today, Robert? And how does that show up in your life on a daily basis? Going through what you've been through, or having gone through what you've been through.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned it earlier. It's my granddaughter, right? Now we have a wonderful family, small, but I was gone so much in my military career. I lost a lot of time with my family, my wife and our family. And so now that I'm retired and I have the chance to really spend time with my granddaughter, who lives very near to me. So I get to see her throughout the weekends. We have such a special relationship. So I text her before she goes to school. I talk to her after she gets home from school, and I talk to her before she goes to bed every day.
I love it.
Yeah, so that makes me very, very happy to be with her, because because her life is just starting, and I just it makes me happy knowing that I'm trying to be a good man for her, and to position her for success in all things. And so, yeah, that's where my happiness comes from.
I love it, right? Because you get to make that up, like you said, because of your military career. That's why I always thank the families too. I always say thank you for your service.
Oh, yes, of course.
Some of them look at me like, what are you talking about? Right. And I'm like, because you're sacrificing a lot to allow, whether it's your wife or husband or brother or sister, to go serve our country, right? Because like my daughter-in-law is in the Air Force and is planning on retiring. I think she's starting year 12 this year, or maybe even later, but she's been in the military quite. But, I understand it, because, they're at a place for 4 years. And from the kids' point, I try to think, gotta suck, right? Because you're there for 4 years, you start building your friends, and then it's, time to move.
Yeah.
Right. And as you know, that you're either not home, or you're moving to another place, or your duty station's over here, and it's a tough life for everybody. But I think, from my perspective as a former Navy guy too, I didn't get to experience everything you did, but like, I'm so honored that you're here to hear your story and how you're now giving back and being present for your granddaughter, right? Because that's got to make your family happy when they're like, oh, grandpa's being so good to his granddaughter, right? I mean, but it's strange relationships. I get it from what I've seen from my friends in the military that are either, deployed or having to move constantly. But again, thank you for your service and thank you for being here. But so let's get in. So again, where can they get your books, Robert? Where can they get a hold of you if they have questions for you or want to support you in your nonprofit and helping others, or if they just have questions how to get started helping, or they have questions in their faith? How can they get a hold of you?
Oh, yeah, thank you. They can go to my website. It's fatherbob.co, not com, but co, fatherbob.co. There they can, it'll link them to a complete library of my books, my nonprofit, Bright Future Philanthropy Corporation. It links to my Substack where I write weekly. And so, yeah, they can get a hold of me, via email. And so, yeah, that's the best place to contact me. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. You heard that, everybody. Take them up on it. Well, like I said, this has been one amazing time. I'm so honored that you joined me today, but you're not quite off the hook just yet. Now I get to ask you my favorite question that I always remember. And it goes like this, Robert. So what is the one piece of advice you could give my audience to help them grow as human beings and become better people?
Yeah. Well, I would say this, it's we live in a legalistic society, right? And we want to, and I think we compound and complicate things so much. And we make things very, very difficult for us to try to figure out our way. But really, the Lord made it easy for us, because to follow his way, just follow his simple rules. Right. Love thyself, love as you would love him, and love your neighbor as yourself. That's it. It's pretty easy. Just be humble people, help people, extend yourself further than 3 feet, right? And just that's it. Just love others, love thy neighbor. I mean, how often is it that you don't even know who your neighbor is anymore? Right?
Exactly. And in some of our cities, as you know, they could literally be like, you could reach out and touch them, but you don't know who they are. I get it.
Or like, here's a good point. Like, when the lotto reaches $1 billion, we all run to the 7-Eleven to buy the lotto ticket, but yet in the hopes that we would win, which the odds are so against that. Yet right. We'll step on, step over, step around the guy who's got his hand out for $1. Yet we won't do that.
And that's the biggest reward when you can do that, right? At least I know I did that with a kid, and I don't say this to brag, but it just, he asked for help, right? And I'm like, he didn't smell like of alcohol, you know what I mean? And he looked like he was really struggling. He was homeless. He said his family wouldn't let him. So I gave him some money, but I also got him something to eat. And I gave him my 2 cents. I said, here's what you can do. This is what will help you. And whether he takes it or not, I said, turn around and help somebody else. Right. And what happens is I said, God will help you and you'll get to where you need to go.
Yeah, that's right.
And he kind of looked at me and he thanked me and, and he goes, and I saw him like shaking his head like, oh man, like no one's ever told me that. Right. Like they just hand me money or whatever. But, I think like you, if we, let's put it this way, my favorite quote goes like this, and you probably heard it before, from Jesse Jackson. The only time you should ever look down on someone is when you're helping them up.
Right.
right? And I
Perfect.
love that,
Yeah.
right? Because that's what we should be doing with each other, right? Like, as you see, everybody, Robert's here gracing me with his present and giving us some great wisdom. So I hope you all were paying attention. Again, Robert, thank you so much for spending this time with me. It was an awesome. Sorry about the little glitches we got. That's why sometimes you love technology and sometimes you hate it, right? Right. But it wasn't our fault, everybody, but we had a great time. So hopefully you learned something from Robert, and thank you for bringing so much value to my audience. So you know how I say it, everybody. If Robert made you think, if Robert taught you something, if Robert made you smile, and my famous, if Robert made you go, I like that, please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star review so more people can find the podcast, and go check out his podcast. So before we go, what is the name of your podcast, Robert?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. It's the Veterans Outlook podcast, and it's on Spotify. Yep.
There you go. All my fellow veterans, go check out his podcast. So thank you for being here, Robert. Again, everybody, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this world. This is Max from the Fearless Happiness Podcast. Until next time.
Are you tired of being weighed down by life's traumas and struggles? Join the Fearless Happiness lifestyle and let us guide you toward a brighter future. Explore our past podcast episodes and get a copy of the Fearless Happiness book to ignite your inner strength. If you or someone you love is battling addiction or facing challenges related to unresolved trauma, know that we are here for you. Visit maxnijst.org, maxnijst.org, and take the first steps toward finding your fearless happiness. Thank you for listening. This has been a production of Fearless Happiness.